Hello again, it's me, Big Seven, back for another Draftstars video. I'm going to go through last week's contest, week 2, the main slate, and then give my early thoughts on the week 3 slate. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So last week was a bit of a disaster. Again, in the main slate, put $300 in, came back with 157-ish. And yeah, there was really only one clear path to victory last week, and you really needed to target that Miami and Baltimore game. If we go to the players' scores, top 4 players: Lamar Jackson, Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jalen Waddle. So any kind of Lamar stack with, say, a Mark Andrews put up he was the top tight end there as well. Rashad Bateman, 23 points. So any kind of Lamar stack with one of those two, and then Tua or Tyreek or Waddle going back the other way would have catapulted you up into a really good position. And also any Miami stack, if you went Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle, that puts you in such a good position to cash. I don't think I've seen scores like maybe they have been this high, but to win a main slate with 260 odd points, that's insane. If we look at all the top teams here, I mean, you'll see that the majority of them are Tua, Hill, Waddle, Andrews. Second one, Lamar, Bateman, Hill, and Andrews. Tua, Hill, Waddle, Andrews. I actually got a Carson Wentz team there. Amon-Ra went off in that game. Curtis Samuel did all right. And then kind of double stacked this game, Rainmaker did. So Wentz, Amon-Ra, and Curtis Samuel with Tyreek Hill and Andrews for basically the double game stack there. So that was really your way to getting a big finish this week. Unfortunately, I avoided that game completely. I just wasn't sold on Lamar, and I've been proven wrong. Lamar in a contract year, go against him at your peril. I've learned from my mistakes. I will be at least having a couple of Lamar teams this week. So things that I did do instead, I did have a lot of Carson Wentz. I think he was my most selected quarterback, and at 9% and 12K, he was a little bit off those top two guys, but he was the best of the rest. Joe Flacco didn't really deliver. Goff, if you had to go on the other side of that Washington-Detroit game, also put up a serviceable score. Running backs were really disappointing. Nick Chubb was my cheap guy that I went a lot of, and he wasn't really too much under the radar, 27% picking him. But I had him in about half of my teams, and he was the only running back to go above 20, and he did that fairly convincingly. So very happy with the Chubb pick. The rest of my running backs were pretty disappointing. Had a bit of McCaffrey, who, 20 points, like compared to the rest of the running backs, is second in there. But you could have spent that money on a wide receiver and gotten a much better point total. Jonathan Taylor, scrolling right down the list. Highly selected. There should have been a game where he ate, and then it just, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. Only 54 rushing yards, 9 receiving yards. I don't know why they didn't use him more. The Colts are just baffling to me. This is the Jags division. And the other one, who else was there? Where is Saquon? Yeah, 11.8, the other big dog. Just didn't live up to last week, but I'm not writing him off completely. Of the cheaper guys, I mean, Pollard, not on the radar. Swift, none of these guys really did that well. It was just a really poor week in general for running backs. Wide receivers, Hill, Waddle, the Sun God, Amon-Ra. I love this guy. I think he is a similar price again this week, or maybe he's got a bit of an upgrade. I'll go into that in a second. Garrett Wilson looks to have broken out. that's good if that's good for future weeks. Cup did alright. A few receivers in the 20s, including Aguilar, Curtis Samuel, shaper guy. Drake London, who looks to be the main target in Atlanta now. I picked a fair bit of Landry, who only got 6.5 points. I guess that is what it is. Greg Dortch at 6K, another one that's been performing well, but we need to see if Rondale Moore comes back this week. Tight ends, Mark Andrews was the clear play. I had a lot of Kyle Pitts, unfortunately. And yeah, it just seems like Arthur Smith doesn't want to use him. He put up a paltry 3.9 points. And yeah, I don't think he can be picked until he has a solid game again. Other players that will value, Zach Ertz had a fair bit of him. Gesicki I wasn't going near. Freiermuth has been pretty good this year in his 2 games. I think he's gone 12 in both of them. And then DSTs. Unfortunately, I loaded up on a lot of Miami because I thought they would be able to contain Lamar. They clearly weren't, and negative 4 points are not great there. I should have just gone for some more Saints. I mean, they did score only 4 points, but they did look pretty sound defensively until Lattimore got sent off. The Bucks I had a fair bit of, 6,400, top DST there. I said not to pay up for the big dogs. They were disappointing. Even Denver as well. None of them really worth paying for. Jags are a good option for future weeks. And also had a fair bit of Cleveland, who were on track to do well until they gave up 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes. So going on to this week, there is a game tomorrow, Browns and Steelers. It's not going to be an appealing game to watch, I don't think. I will attack it a little bit. I'm looking really just to build a team without both of the quarterbacks. Trubisky, I think, has a chance of getting benched. Brissett is just not at that top level. So any combination of these 5, 6, and maybe a cheaper option in there, like maybe getting rid of a Najee and getting Claypool. Also, both DCs are in play. Browns and the Steelers could even go both. Because the quarterbacks aren't great. Chance of interceptions, chance of sacks, and yeah. But I'm mainly looking to target the main slate this week. Again, 50 grand in the pool. It filled over that last week, and hopefully it does that again. I'm going to go through game by game pretty quickly. Saints Carolina. Chris Olave is a cheap guy that's didn't score too great last week. Scored 11-ish points. Had the potential to score a lot more though. Dropped a long pass, and there were a few other long passes that were just out of reach of him. Michael Thomas could go for. He's put up 2 solid weeks as well. McCaffrey, just not sure about Carolina at the moment. Just not sure if they're going to use him as much as they need to. Last week, the offensive coordinator said they needed to use him more, and they didn't do it. So, and he did put up 102 yards, but still, I'm just not sure about Carolina at this stage. And then we've got Jarvis Landry at 6K again. Didn't put up as big a score in week 2, but is capable of doing the same. Is capable of doing better this week, I should say. Next game, Vegas, Tennessee. I'm not really interested in Tennessee players at the moment. I was expecting them to be poor this year, and they did just get destroyed by the Bills and were poor against the Giants. So I'm not really looking to go near them at this stage. The one player I would potentially consider is Treylon Burks, who is slowly getting that number 1 receiver role. I think there will be a week where he breaks out. could even be this week. For Vegas, could go a Vegas stack if you wanted with Carr and Adams. I don't mind that. It's just, yeah, it's hard to really stack this game unless Vegas are going to blow out Tennessee, which could happen, but I don't really see that happening. The one that's really interesting is Josh Jacobs. He hasn't put up big scores yet, but he also hasn't crossed into the end zone at all. So if he puts up this kind of base again with a touchdown, then he outperforms the price point, and he is capable. Baltimore and New England, I doubted Lamar last week. It's not the best matchup on paper, but I still see no reason why to avoid him. New England haven't given up a ton of points this year, but Lamar trying to get a contract. I'm pretty happy to go with him and stacking him with either Andrews or Bateman, possibly even both. Both are a little bit underpriced, I think. For New England, I'm not really interested in anyone unless Damian Harris is injured, and it sounds like he's going to be okay. If he was going to be missing this week, then Ramondre Stevenson comes into play at 8K. You could pick one of these running backs and have a punt on that position. Hope one of them goes off, but it would be a punt. Cincinnati and the Jets. I'm still waiting for Joe Burrow to get this season underway for Cincinnati. They should, 0-2. They should click into gear at some point. And I think the slide on Joe Burrow has gone a bit too far. So I will have once again. I will have a couple with Jamar and Burrow. They were my second most selected stack last week and let me down. But I'm willing to bet on this offense again. Garrett Wilson, he broke out in a big way last week. I'm not sure what to make of him at that price. It seems a little bit inflated, but if he is the true number one wide receiver at the Jets, then he is an option. Other than that, not really too interested in anyone else. Mixon's actually okay. I don't mind him. In the past, the knock on him was that he wasn't getting receiving work. He's got 10 receptions in 2 games now. I don't know. This could be a top 5 running back at a discounted price, so I don't mind Joe Mixon either. And Nick Chubb also just scored 3 touchdowns against the Jets, so don't mind Mixon either. Detroit, Minnesota, I'm going to be targeting this game quite a bit. A lot of good fantasy options in it. And Detroit have been scoring a lot and conceding a lot. Kirk Cousins and Minnesota were disappointing, but it was a Monday night game, so that was to be expected. I think Kirk is now 2-10 on the Monday night stage. So Kirk is 14K and Goff is 11K. I'm happy to take that discount and go for Goff over Kirk in this matchup. But I think it's a pretty easy game to stack here. Amon-Ra is just in great form and the clear number one in Detroit and looking to prove all of his haters incorrect. And then Justin Jefferson, he was disappointing last week, but he put up 42 the week before. It is a big price point, but I'm happy to pay up for it and then fill the rest of the team out with value. Adam Thielen's been a bit disappointing this year, but he'll always be a red zone threat. DeAndre Swift put up 2 big games. He's questionable. I'm not really worried about him missing. I am a little bit worried about him splitting workload with Jamal Williams, who is at 8K, but still, even at that price, I'm happy to throw in a bit of Swift. And Cook, I don't mind either. It's just a bit of an elevated price point, and I'd rather go for the receiving options in this game and pick some of the other running backs that are on the slate. Don't think there's anyone else I would really consider. You could go on Irv Smith or a TJ Hawkinson if you want to include the tight ends in the stack, but I think I'm willing to let both of these slide. Buffalo and Miami, I'm just very interested to see how this plays out as well. Tua obviously breaking out last week, put up a massive score, and I'm just I haven't watched the film yet, but I'm not totally convinced that Tua is going to be the guy. Buffalo have terrorized both their opponents that their defense has. Could be the same again. And if that is the case, then the Buffalo defense at 5,800 is a really good value pick. But maybe this is another shootout. Maybe I'm doubting Tua a bit much, and I, yeah, if that is the case, then if this is a shootout, then Tua is a fantastic option at this price point, and you've got two weapons that he's shown he can support. And in addition to that, Stephon Diggs has had a massive start to the year. Put up 29 and 47 in the first two games. If he does that again, wow, it's going to be pretty incredible. And then you've got Gabe Davis, who put up 18 in the first game. He's even cheaper as well. So you could, if this ends up being a shootout, you could realistically pick all four of these players and then cheapen out the rest of the teams. But yeah, I'm just not sure if it's the case. I think it will be a fairly popular stack as well, given that um, Tua had a massive game last week and people will expect him to back it up. I don't mind it. Just not one I'm looking to target heavily, but I probably will have a couple of teams of it. Philly and Washington, Jalen Hurts has looked really good this year, putting up 24 and 37 in his first two games, and he comes at a discount to the other top line quarterbacks. So he's definitely an option. Easy stack with AJ Brown. You can also throw in Dallas Goedert for that. And then Washington have also been, I guess, one of the surprise packets this year in terms of their offense. Carson Wentz is moving the ball really well for them. Back to back 32s, I think. Yep, 32 and 31. So he's also an option here. I guess the slight problem in terms of DFS perspective is that he's spreading the ball out a bit. Terry McLaurin is due for a massive game, 13 and 12, and you would expect him to be the alpha on this team. Curtis Samuel has outscored him in the first couple of weeks, and yeah, he's a solid option at that price point as well. But yeah, I still think Terry is a bit underpriced here. You could even say that Curtis Samuel's a bit underpriced, and you could have some kind of could have a Wentz stack with both of those guys and two Philly guys, or you could even do the same with Hurts. This could very well be a shootout as well. Jahan Dotson's also in play, 18 points, a little bit inflated because he's had 3 touchdowns in those games. But yeah, the price is still only 8,500, so he could do it again. Antonio Gibson, one to consider as well. I'm just still a little bit gun shy of him, having been burnt by him in previous seasons. Score last week was boosted by a touchdown. It wasn't really very productive other than that. And then Miles Sanders as well. He scored decently against Detroit, and it wasn't too bad against Minnesota. The problem is he scored no touchdowns last year, scored one this year, but I'm just not sure if the ceiling is there. I'm happy to go a pass-heavy lineup in this game. The Chiefs and Indy, this is a really interesting game. Indy have been really poor to start the season. Michael Pittman was missing last game, and Indy were also missing some pieces on defense. This just seems like the game where Indianapolis have started so slowly to the season that it seems like you should write them off, and this is the game where they'll come out and put everything together. So in terms of fantasy option, I think this could be an underrated shootout as well. Jonathan Taylor, his usage last week was just ordinary. I don't know what they were doing. Um, but yeah, at this 14,600, it's hard not to back him to bounce back. I'm not really interested in Ryan. Could go a Pittman. But yeah, the Indianapolis offense should be going through Taylor and Pittman if both are playing. I'd rather pick Mahomes in this spot if you are going to go for the shootout. You can pair him up with Kelsey. You could even go JT and Pittman there. And then I guess the slight problem with Mahomes is he's been sharing the load a bit. Like Kelsey's the clear number one, but there isn't a clear number two on this team. Juju had a poor game last game. So did MVS. The wide receiver that actually scored the most for them last game was Justin Watson, and he did that on a limited number of snaps. I wouldn't expect him to back it up again this week. But I think something with Mahomes, Taylor, Pittman, Kelsey, could even go a Clyde in this game, actually. Clyde's been putting up good numbers, and he looks a lot better this year. I guess the real problem with Clyde in a stack is that you'd have to have receiving touchdowns. Still possible. I like him as a standalone option as well. I think, yeah, something like these four and then filling out the rest of it looks somewhat appealing to me. Houston, Chicago. Yeah. I'm not really too enthused by this game. Davis Mills is at a cheapish price. So you can go the cheaper quarterback and stack him with Cooks and fill out the rest of the team with more expensive options. I don't really mind that. Yeah, not a game I'm looking to target too heavily. Justin Fields hasn't looked great this year. Granted, week one was in a monsoon, and week two was playing against his owner. So, and yeah, Chicago might look better this week, but they've barely been passing the ball. So yeah, the other I do prefer Houston in this game, and the other one I would potentially consider is Damian Pierce. I had a bad week one, but got more of the workload last week. 8K, maybe he crosses over into the end zone and puts up a big score. Jacksonville and the Chargers. This is a really interesting game. Yeah, Justin Herbert went off injured, and came back, dealing with I think rib cartilage issues. So it will be interesting to see if he is 100% or not. Just for that reason, I'm probably not looking to go too aggressively in this game. And the Jacksonville defense has looked pretty solid this year. They've added some pieces through the draft, and yeah, it seems like Jacksonville are the best team in the AFC South at this stage. In saying that, the Chargers also have a pretty good defense. So I don't think it's a game that's going to be a shootout. I don't think it's going to be a shutout or either. Like I think it could be, you know, something along the lines of say 26-20 or something like that. There are some options you can play in this game. Christian Kirk looks a bit underpriced to me. Had good usage in the first two games. Gerald Everett has put up two good games, and the Chargers aren't afraid to use their tight end. Joshua Palmer, if Keenan Allen doesn't play, then Palmer definitely comes into play for mine. Yeah, not a game. I'm not looking to stack this game, but I don't mind some of the pieces in here. Atlanta Seahawks. The two most expensive players here, Mariota and Geno Smith. I don't want to pick either of them, especially considering like you can pay a little bit more and get Jared Goff in there. But I don't mind some of the pieces here either. Cordarrelle, yeah, he burnt me a bit last week, but yeah, I'm not really too sure about Cordarrelle actually. Drake London looks to be the main part of the Atlanta offense now. 12 points and 24 in the first two games. If he's the clear number one target in what should be a softest matchup, then he's worth a punt at 10K. Kyle Pitts, he's just an avoid now until Arthur Smith decides that he wants to use him as part of the offense. Because at the moment, Arthur Smith doesn't want to do that. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, maybe standalone plays. Yeah, not really a game to go after too aggressively, I don't think, but I don't mind Drake London. Green Bay and Tampa Bay, both of these offenses have been a bit patchy to start the year. Granted, Green Bay did just destroy the Bears, but it is the Bears, so that is to be expected. Aaron Rodgers is quite cheap. Yeah, I think Tampa Bay do well in this game because their defense is pretty good against the rush, and Green Bay's best two weapons are Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. So um, I think they can be stifled quite a bit this game. AJ Dillon is very cheap considering the amount of usage he will have, but it is going to be a tough game. And then for the Tampa Bay offense, you've obviously got Brady, but we don't know what his weapons are. You've got Mike Evans, who's suspended, Chris Godwin, who I don't think is going to be playing, and then Fournette's questionable, Gage is questionable, and Jones is questionable. If Gage was to be playing and Jones was out, then I would think I will pick him a bit, and the same with the other way around. I also don't mind Fournette if he gets up and plays as well. Just depends if there's any doubt around him or not. He could be a play. I think Tampa Bay will run the ball a fair bit. But I do also think this could be a low-scoring game also. And then, so that obviously brings a DST into play. Tampa Bay, 13 and 26 in the first 2 weeks. If they could do anything like that again, they would be great value. And if we look at Tampa Bay, geez, I didn't realize that Perryman and Scotty Miller were both questionable as well. So you might be able to get a 6K wide receiver that gets a fair bit of play. We'll need to monitor that situation a bit more closely. And then I think the Rams and the Cardinals. I think this has the potential to be a big shootout as well. The Cardinals' defense hasn't been there, and the Rams gave up a big score to the Bills, gave up a fair few points to Atlanta as well. So I think this has the makings of a shootout. Stafford and Murray both a little bit under what I thought they would be, and easy to stack them. So if you were to go Kyler, you've got Hollywood Brown, who's still underpriced. We need to see who plays out of Rondale and Greg Dortch. If Dortch plays again, then he has been scoring well in that slot role. If Rondale plays, then I don't think Dortch will see much field time at all. So I think one of these guys, a sneaky 6K option to put in your stacks. It's fairly appealing. And then the Rams, Cooper Kupp's just such an easy player to pick. 17 or nearly 18K. Two identical scores, not identical stat lines, but yeah, he's getting 100 yards and 10 plus receptions each game to start the year. No real doubts around him. Allen Robinson comes in pretty cheap, rebounded a bit last week with a 15 game. So you could really go, Kupp, Robinson, Hollywood Brown, and a Stafford stack. Just plenty of options that you can use in this game. And then the tight ends, you can also use them as well. Tyler Higbee, 7,300, comes in underpriced considering the amount of targets he's had. And also Zach Ertz has had a big second week. 8 receptions, 75 yards, no touchdown. So if he had, say 5 receptions, 55 yards, and a touchdown, it's 18 odd points. You're more than happy with that at 8,200. And yeah, I think this game will be a shootout. I will be targeting this one fairly aggressively as well. So yeah, That's the end of the video. I'll be back on Sunday to go through my team breakdowns and who I've ended up selecting. I haven't built my teams yet. I normally do that on a Saturday night or a Sunday. Yeah, so I'll see you back here on Sunday, and yeah,